Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all in this truth and hold to rule well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect. Unto you I say shalom. Coming to you back with another lesson through the Spirit. Now I'm entitled this one, All Esau does is go around the world and take resources, because we see what the self-proclaimed white man is doing, which is the biblical Edomite, the descendants of Esau, which is the twin brother of Jacob, which would have complete rulership of the entire planet Earth, to the point where he just can't have enough, so he goes around all these different nations, and whenever these other nations find a valuable natural resource from oil, precious metals, gems, gold, silver, anything that is valuable, Esau, Edom will find a way to go into these different countries, just like he did in the time of Iraq, Afghanistan, talking about, they have weapons of mass destruction, and they have to be stopped. But really, the reason that he pushes these agendas on the media, the news, social media, is to be able to have these people believe, okay, these other countries, they're terrorists, we have to stop them. But really, all Esau Edom is doing is making up an excuse so he can go to these different nations, put them to death. If they don't comply, they'll take down their leader, just like he did 2 decades ago. And that's what he's doing now with the whole Venezuela thing. He's not going over there because it's a terrorist, no, because he's going over there because Venezuela is the largest country with oil reserves. And that's why he's doing all these excuses of, they terrorists, they sell drugs, they're cartels. But now the whole world's starting to wake up that Esau Edom is just making all these excuses up. And then now they're starting to find out that all the times that he went to these countries for so-called terrorists, and we got to stop them, we got to impose our democracy and our currency, it was just to further himself, to further his kingdom. But now all these nations, they're like, nah, the U.S., robbed us. They never really benefited us but themselves. So all these different nations that were once allied with the U.S., and even his own allies, are eventually going to turn on the whore, which is Babylon, the Great America, and shoot missiles at this whore. This is Micah chapter 2 and verse 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And that's all Esau Edom, the so-called white man, does, is devise iniquity, devise new ways. How can I take this nation's resources? How can I impose my laws? How can I impose my dollar? But now it's to the point where all these nations are like, man, we're done dealing with America. We're done dealing with Babylon the Great, because it's just a parasite. It don't benefit us. It's just benefiting them. So ultimately, all these nations eventually are going to turn on America, and they're turning on America now. They're not using this dollar no more. The dollar was once backed up by oil. That's being done away with. Verse 2, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man and his heritage. Going throughout these different nations, talking about, okay, whatever religion you were practicing, Islam, whatever other religion, you can't do that no more. Now you got to practice our religion, just like he did in the time of the Renaissance, during the time of the colonists going around the Americas, enslaving the northern kingdom. That's what they're doing now. But at a higher level with a more deadly force. And now they got the military by their side. So this is how they're doing all these different operations to take over these different nations' resources. This is Job chapter 9 and verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof, if not, where and who is he? And now the whole world's starting to find out who the problem of the earth is, who the wicked is, who are behind calling all these shots. The wicked elite, the tiny caps, people over there in the Holy Land, the ones you can't talk about. They're the ones calling the shots, and the whole world's starting to realize that. And now that the whole world's starting to realize to the fact that the so-called white man is the problem of the earth, now they're starting to turn on Esau, Edom. Even Esau, Edom is divided. And it's only going to get more and more divided up until the point that leads to that Third World War, that leads to the massive implementation of the MOTB, that leads to the nuclear destruction of America. And that's really why Esau, Edom has the power to do all these things, because ultimately he was blessed by Isaac. He was given that temporary blessing that will allow him to rule upon the planet Earth. That's why he's going to Venezuela. That's why he's going to all these different nations, Nigeria, talking about we got to free them from terrorists, and we got to, stop letting these Christians get deleted. But really, it's a bigger agenda. They want their resources, because Esau, Edom, he can never have enough. He has the Esau syndrome. That covetous spirit, never have enough. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 5. Yeah, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man. Neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. So this devil can never have enough. He can never have enough. That's why he's trying to go to all these different planets and galaxies. He's trying to go to Mars. Here you got complete rulership of the entire planet Earth, but it's not enough. You got to take over all these different planets. But that's why Yahweh Bashim Shai has, he can't, Esau Edom can't go past the firmament, the Van Allen. That's why he's trapped here. And now, since he can't go further than the Earth, planet Earth, now he's trying to get control of people's souls, of their spirits, which we know he's not going to be successful, because ultimately Yahweh Bashim Shai is going to put a stop to this devil. But that's how bad this devil wants complete rulership of everything. He's trying to be like the Most High, but we know that he's going to fail miserably. Yeah, Yahweh Bashim Shai is going to allow him to set his NWO up to a certain period of time, but then eventually he's going to be stopped. But that's that pride in this devil. Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And that word thick clay, going into that depth. All this devil is just rack up more and more debt. He keeps praying out dollars. He just keeps messing everything up, messing the economy up. The U.S. is $40 trillion in debt. All these, countries are in debt to the U.S., and the U.S. is in debt to China. It's just a big old mess. And that's ultimately why he's trying to just, crash this system and so-called do away with his debt, but which we know is not going to happen. That's why the U.S. is going to go to that Third World War, because this devil was not going to pay off his debt. He's going to try to be slick. Oh, I'm not going to pay it off. I'm going to just crash this system and form a new currency. But no. Yahweh Bashim Shai is going to put the spirit on these devils to go to war with each other, along with China, Russia, Iran, and all these different countries. This is Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 3. the pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, that dwelleth in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that said in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? And that's what Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, is doing. He's telling the whole world, I'm basically telling them, I'm the Most High now. Nobody can stop me. Look what I'm doing. I'm going around these different countries, taking their resources, and who's stopping me? Nobody. But that's Yahweh Shemel Shai puffing up this devil, because like that saying, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. So Yahweh Shemel Shai is puffing this devil up, like it says in, I think, Romans chapter 17, where it says like he was hardening the heart of Pharaoh. That's what Yahweh Shemel Shai is doing to this devil. Verse 4, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and what's the logo, the mascot of Esau, Edom, of Babylon, the great America, the eagle, letting you know who the devil is, the deceiver, the sons of the wicked, Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white people. And though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, said the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai. And once Esau, Edom, so-called went to the moon, he so-called put his flag on there, and then he had Neil Armstrong called the president on a landline. That's when Esau, Edom started collapsing. But right around that time, that's when our elder high priest Abba Bivens came on the scene. That's when the world started to find out who Esau, Edom is, who the problem of the earth is, up until this point. And now the cat's out the bag. And ever since the 60s, Esau, Edom's kingdom has been crumbling. America has been crumbling. The height of America was the 50s, the 50s or the early 60s. And then up until that point, it just started collapsing and collapsing. The U.S. started getting in more and more debt. All these different countries started looking at America sideways, and they didn't look at it like they did during the World War II, during the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Verse 5, if thieves come to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers come to thee, will they not leave some grapes? So Esau, Edom, he's just, greedy as all hell, covetous as all hell, taking everything for himself. Nah, you can't have none. Here, Esau, Edom has complete rulership of the entire earth, but people are starving. People are famished, crowded, living in these cities. Esau, Edom's talking about we're overpopulated, or you could just take a drive out in the country with just land on land on land. But yet, Esau, Edom's like, nah, that's mine. You can't live there. Verse 6, how are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? And now the world's starting to wake up to who the problem of the earth is. The so-called white man, Esau, Edom, the problem of the earth. Verse 7, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. Going into how all these different nations that America, Babylon the Great, is allied with, they're eventually going to turn on this horde, because really they're already in that spirit. Like it says in the scriptures, a house divided cannot stand. If Satan be divided against himself, that house cannot stand. And that's what's happening. Now all these different Edomite nations are divided. Russia, Ukraine, the U.S., Germany, and all these different countries, they're divided against themselves. So how is the kingdom going to stand if your own allies are divided against amongst themselves? Get this last one. This is Job chapter 14 and verse 5. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. And this devil is right at his bounds that he cannot pass. Yahweh Shemel Shai is going to allow him come down with that great wrath. He's going to allow him to set up his NWO to micro-seed up a lot of people, except for the elect. And then his raps. Yahweh Shemel Shai is going to put a stop to this devil. Yahweh Shai is going to crack the clouds and put a stop to this devil, destroy the wicked, Judge America by the way of thermonuclear fire and deliver his elect. Because this devil, he has to be stopped ASAP. If not, he will destroy himself. But that's pretty much the point. Pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all in this truth and who do rule well. Peace and salutations to 144,000, the rest of the elect.